Good afternoon. Welcome to Mirror Moments, Episode 7. Today we're talking about pride in all colors and celebrating intersectionality in the LGBTQIA plus community. My name is Sheila Marmon, and I'm the founder and CEO of Mirror Digital. I'm very excited to welcome you and our esteemed panelists today.
Hi there, my name is Christopher Saint. I'm an artist, activist, and entrepreneur. I'm the founder of my own creative marketing studio called Palette LA, and I'm currently the head of social media and content strategy for Paris Hilton. I'm also a music artist. I'm very proud to be representing the queer community as a queer artist of color.
Amazing. Thank you. Ezra, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ezra Jones, the founder and CEO of The F State, a creative mother agency located in Texas, branding love, style, culture, connecting people in creative spaces.
Amazing. Damien, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Damien Pelliccioni. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I am the CEO and one of four fabulous equal co-founders of Reverie, the world's largest LGBTQ television network.
Fantastic. Holly, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Holly Arias Gray. I am the Director of Marketing and Business Development at Mirror Digital.
And an undergrad in PR. And yeah, so I've been traversing the whole digital media space, worked with publishers, other celebrities like Kim Kardashian and Kendall and Kylie. I've worked with publishers like the LA Times and Time Magazine and People Magazine. And currently I'm working with Paris Hilton, who all of us know as, obviously a traditional celebrity, but she's creating such headway, especially this year. She launched a podcast company with iHeartRadio. She launched an unscripted development company with Warner Brothers. And she was kind of the original influencer as Gen Z has sort of reclaimed her. And, really invented the paradigm of personal branding. She has 19 global product lines and a multi-billion-dollar entertainment holding company. So just being on the inside of her operations and also charting her in the path forward. She had YouTube's Originals, one of their highest programs last year for her This Is Paris documentary. And she's really changing the troubled teen industry right now. She came out last year having experienced a lot of trauma herself at these institutions. She attended 6 of them as a teenager, and she's actually changing laws and legislation that is saving thousands of children from institutional abuse. So it's just an exciting role now, just being able to touch different parts. I would say as it pertains to obviously the queer community and just sort of who I am, I founded my own creative marketing agency about 6 years ago, just working with a bunch of different clients, celebrities and publishers and technology companies. And, I think part of my intention of being an entrepreneur in this space was really to have a seat at the table. And, I think in many ways, my clout and sort of my presence as a business leader has allowed me to do so. But now I'm really more focused on how to extend or how do we even create our own table, really. And, that's why I champion and I love companies like Damien's, Reverie, that just really uplift voices. And for me to kind of be visible and to be included in these creative conversations at such a high level with marketers and just with advertisers, I think it's so important. There was a lot, and over the years, we've talked a lot about sort of like rainbow capitalism and rainbow washing and just sort of like how there's a way to authentically enter the space, especially from a brand perspective and a company. And then there's a way to have a real cause first presence and a cause first mission and intent. And I think that speaks so loudly. So I
love it. We'll definitely talk a lot more about that too. So I think that's so critical to dive into. I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but that's something I just had to co-sign on that.
That's what I love to do, and I love to sort of work on just even outside of my role with Paris. So yeah, that's
awesome.
me.
Thank you so much. Ezra, you want to go next?
Sure. I don't know if we have that much time, but I'll try to shorten it, 'cause how I jumped into the industry is like sort of kind of unlikely. I did start at the age of 17. Actually, one of my friends suggested that I work for Abercrombie and Fitch because he couldn't, well, he really loved the clothes, but he knew that they wouldn't hire him because he was, they were very based off of looks at the time. And so he was like, you're skinny, you're tall, you're thin, go work for them so we can get a discount. So I jumped into working for them, and found out and discovered that I really loved like merchandising and styling people and really just had a knack for it. So much so that I would be requested to like open stores and do their merchandising, and just really started down the path of entering into the fashion world. Then decided I wanted to become a model. And I was really like a shy, like awkward kid, believe it or not. Most people don't believe me when I tell them that. And one of my mom's friends, who was a pastor from South Africa, basically said, hey, like you look like you should be a model. And there was just something about the exuberance of the way he said it, because I never really thought about it, considered it, or believed it. And so I started down the pathway of trying to do that. Did that for a while, and was pretty much hitting like roadblocks, getting a lot of we already have like your look. Which is, you know, at the time in which I grew up, was kind of like we have our token, you know, Black person. And so it was very difficult. And then I decided to take a step back and really like research and like, let me really figure this thing out. So I did all of these things and eventually landed a agency. And then within 3 to 6 months of me landing the agency closed down. And so I was bummed out and I had to start all over again. Jumped into the workforce, fast forward, and then eventually got to a position of like creating my own agency just out of my own experiences of having modeled before and not necessarily having the support that I needed. And so sort of kind of like Christopher said, it was just more about like creating and building not only the table, the chairs, and the tableware and everything, all
the napkins,
right?
all of it.
So yeah, so that's how I got my start into the industry. Today, I've leveraged the ability of what really got my start is just wanting to pursue getting more deeper into the fashion industry. I've always been enamored by magazines and the imagery behind them. And so I wanted to be a part of that industry in that field. I reached out to a producer who initially did not see my email, but the assistant producer of the fashion show that was Untitled at the time saw my email, exclaimed to the lead producer, hey, you got to take a look at this email. They did, had an over 3 hour long conversation. They brought me onto the production team. That particular production was later entitled Insta Runway. It trended in 2015. And we had an all Black designer cast. Some of those designers were not well known at the time, but they're all very well known today, like Ezzy Asnabor, Kato Mamalu from Project Runway, Laquan Smith, Rico Chappelle of the House of Chappelle. We even had like guest Ty Hunter, who was there. Christina Johnson, who's the ex-wife of CeeLo, was there. Stylist Jay Bolin, right before the precipice of anybody knowing who he was there. And that sort of kind of like started the trajectory of, you know, where we are today. So
I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing. So Damien, please tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Damien. I'm the CEO of Brevery, one of 4 fabulous co-founders. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I am Hollywood's first on record non-binary CEO. How I got into this industry was completely like non-traditional. I don't have a business degree or a formal marketing degree or a legal degree. I was an actor in Toronto, where I'm born and raised. Who went to, performing arts high school, made my way to New York City. Then 9/11 happened. So I decided to try my luck in Los Angeles. From there, outside of acting, I got into the field of producing and then starting to work in kind of the digital space. And this is going back to like when YouTube started in 2006, producing a ton of content specifically made for the web. And that led me to working for multiple startups and doing business development and sales. And then eventually, coming up with the idea, this crazy concept of Reverie, which is now the market leader in the world's largest LGBTQ TV streaming networks. And it's funny because I wanted to call out, if you were all watching when Sir Christopher Saint was talking, he was the star of that big cold open. And this was an amazing project that we got to do together, which he wrote, starred in, and sang with McDonald's.
Amazing.
McDonald's actually came to the table at Pride season to create this variety show. And Sir Christopher Saint had pitched us this music. I just want to say this story because it's really relevant. Like, how many years? It was 3 years ago that you came to us with this Pride anthem, remastered it, remixed it, re-recorded it, choreographed it with like Anja Stranja, and then we shot it at a freestanding McDonald's set in the city of Industry. And this today, now in 30 days, has seen almost 10 million impressions, and that is because we're working with such talented people, like Chris. So, brands are excited. Brands want to be part of the conversation, and especially big corporate ones like McDonald's. And now, after the success of House of Pride, they're like, what else can we do 365 days of the year? So it's a really exciting moment, I think, to be in the place that we're all sitting in, and to, start these conversations and really bring these Fortune 500 brands into, the world of LGBTQ media.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And Holly, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, before I even dive in, though, I have to say, seeing Christopher and seeing Damien and knowing Damien as they were starting Reverie, it's so nice.
It's great.
Have this moment where we're all on screen here and just seeing you two thrive. I mean, it's incredible. And it's just a heartwarming moment here. So as far as how I got into the industry, it really started with my love of music and my love of technology really crossing paths. So I moved out to Los Angeles really on just a dream and a full prayer, because I moved out here, made the plans, and then told my mother after, and she had a full panic. And I told her, I was like, I'm working in the music industry and I'm working in the tech industry, and it's just going to happen. And she was like, you don't know anybody out there. And with good luck, I made one friend who is still one of my best friends today. She got me into Network Music Group, which is an incredible company that was saying that music would be a utility. In the early aughts, I think circa 2001, they were saying music would be a utility, and here we are today with everything streaming, and we pay everything monthly. And that was really my start, and my love for the arts just kept growing from there. And then after that, while I was working at Network, they gave me such a beautiful space to do a lot of firsts within the digital area, working again with YouTube, same as you, Damien, doing some of the first collaborations there. Also being able to bring brands to bands and be able to make money. And then that's kind of where the brand portion came in for me. And that's where I shifted to publishing and media. And then it's all kind of flourished from there, because I've learned so much around how you can do these beautiful things like, Christopher and Damien and Ezra have all done with advertising dollars to support what our real passions are here in the LGBT community and the arts. And that's what brought me here.
Fabulous. And we're so excited to have you at Mirror. So absolutely. So today we want to talk a little bit about the fact that there's diversity within diversity, and really what intersectionality looks like in the LGBTQ plus community. And it's, very broadly defined. So I would love for each of you to talk about what intersectionality means to you, and what do you think of as those intersectional touch points in your life. They don't have to be traditionally defined, but, as you think of your authentic self, what makes you distinctive even as you're a part of this amazing community?
I'll start. For me, like it's my ethos of who I am, so I've discovered. A lot of, like our three core values for our company are love, style, culture. And that is literally a lot of, who I am, with the most important core values being love. And for me, it doesn't matter like your race, your sex, your creed, your gender, or your religion. I believe that, we should all, love one another. And so I live and lead my life through that. Some of the challenges that I've overcome of, suicidal depression. I'm HIV positive. I'm part of the LGBTQIA plus community. And then also being like, a person that's spiritual and Christian and you know, Black, and all these different, you know, intersections and connective points. And I find that those are some of the very things that we see as differences, but we all share in common. And so that's why I really try to keep like that value of love and empathy, and really always trying to understand other people. Whether or not I agree or not is like irrelevant. It's just really getting to the thought process of, who are they and how did they become this person, and what's their life like, and just learning more about people and individuals. So that's what it means to me.
Love that. Love it. Love it. Here for all of it. Thank you for sharing that. Please, someone else, tell me, what does intersectionality mean to you? What do you want people to know about intersectionality in our community here?
I think when it comes to intersectionality, for me, really, queer artists of color, queer artists of faith, really, to me, understanding sort of the racial divides within the queer community as like spaces for us to heal and for us to conjoin and sort of come together. But what I've found in my own personal experience in some cases is like some of our marginalized groups are fractured from within, and that to me is like really heartbreaking, in a way in which mainstream society or the establishment or the public conversation largely ignores groups. And then when it comes to, our segments, us not necessarily being supportive of one another. So what I strive to do and what I kind of think about is, it goes back to that quote. It's like, be the role model that you wish you had when you were a kid. And I'm actually loving just like a page turning, obviously, especially in terms of on-screen and off-screen representation in media for queer people. We still have a long ways to go. But again, like MJ Rodriguez being the first trans woman to be Emmy nominated is just huge, and it's just a step in the right direction. So I see all of the movement and the progress as movements forward. And again, like going back to just corporations just jumping in to be a part of a conversation, to me, I still think that helps in some ways, because while still people are profiting, and it's about public perception. And for me, I just recently released a song for Pride Month called God Made Me Gay. And I think about just the upbringing I had. I would have never thought that I would be striking distance to all these large brands or celebrities, or even myself putting out music with corporations like McDonald's and with companies like Reverie. It did not seem possible, because I was a stone's throw away from being, very depressed and very boxed in my own self-loathing. And so I think that all the work that we do, especially when it comes to media, is so important, because media and marketing, the millions and millions of dollars that support the public perception and the public conversation, is just so influential and so powerful, especially entertainment. And so anyways, the way that we can go more in the nuances, and particularly just to kind of shout out Reverie again, it's like, having queer artists be able to authentically tell their stories. For me, being fully me in a boardroom, or I used to co-facilitate at USC. I taught in an MBA program, and they were like, what? Like, look at his Instagram page. He's like, this sexy pop star. But really, I want to bridge the belief that artists can actually articulate a vision that is also much needed, that elected officials and that CEOs and business leaders don't necessarily know how to move society forward, and that everyone has something to contribute, spiritual leaders, all of us. So anyways, those are the intersections that I feel like we're still doing this work at.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Totally.
Holly, please share.
Yeah, I think something that Christopher said there is so important too. That there is I'll start on this too. That I do think that there is this fractured group. I remember when I first came to Los Angeles, and I was meeting a lot of gay men and becoming friends with them. And just to date myself a little bit, everyone was like, "Oh, lesbians and gay men, aren't always friends. You know, you keep those groups separate. And I see everybody shaking their heads here. And for me, that was such an unusual thing. And I was like, well, why wouldn't I? One, there are all these fabulous humans here that are in front of me. I want to be their friend, and I'm going to be in this group. And I just thought that was so unusual. And I think that, you know, over the years, things have gotten a lot better. And I think that the groups are starting to kind of come together, but there's still those fractures that are within the LGBTQ plus community that are keeping us apart. And there's so much that can bring us all together when it comes down to it. But as far as what it actually means to me too, you know, coming back to when I first started in LA here, I know that, you know, I was pretty quiet and I kind of kept to myself. But then I realized that I was generally the only woman, generally the only gay person who was in the room. And it was oftentimes, you know, straight white men. And so as I started progressing in my career, I started getting louder and louder around what should actually be happening, because people were trying to tell me what was actually happening in the LGBT community. And I was like, that's not what is happening at all. And that is not good representation at all. So I started making a point every room I would step in where those things, and just get louder and louder about, you know, our community, to make sure that we're seen and heard. And, you know, we're telling our stories, as Chris was saying, because there are so many stories, you know, especially on my side from the women's standpoint and from the LGBT standpoint, that need to be told. And I want to use that as an opportunity to transition to Damien, who is telling those stories.
Yeah, I agree with everybody. And look, you know, going back to the question of intersectionality, I think, yeah, like first of all, like my firm belief is, in at least at Reverie, is we market as unapologetically queer. Queer is encompassing of any gender, any race, any sexual orientation. Even allies who support the community can be part of the queer community, right? We're focused on, you know, uplifting and talking about the culture of queer. And I think that was the problem, you know, kind of like to Holly's point, and even to, you know, Chris and Ezra's point, before in the past, we were so fixated on these segments, you know, that would divide us, as opposed to the cultural aspect that would connect us. And media does have the power to change hearts and minds. You know, our focal point is not just an LGBTQ audience consumer member, right? Actually, most people don't know this. Majority of our audience is allied and non-allied people. When we're existing on Samsung TV Plus and Zumo and all of the major kind of the new virtual cable providers of the future, as the, you know, only broadcast LGBTQ broadcast network or app in these different environments, you know, we are actually being predominantly watched by non-allied people, which I see as an amazing thing, because then we're able to show Christopher's amazing talent as, you know, a queer Asian American, you know, sexy pop star, you know, his whole brand on Instagram, who also is an extremely, you know, savvy and smart business person, and can bridge those two divides and can be seen in those two different worlds, you know. And I'll give you an example, you know, outside of just what we did with House of Pride. I had the extreme pleasure to be a keynote speaker in India at the Kashmir Film Festival in Mumbai, June of 2019. So just over 2 years ago. We had this one original that we had licensed exclusively and then eventually acquired, called The Other Love Story, which is a Hindi and English love story about a queer lesbian couple shot in Bangalore by this amazing producer in London, Harini. And it resonated. It brought in all this attention and all these numbers and this data from that territory, from India. And that was in 2017. Then cut to me being at the film festival in Mumbai 2 years later. At the opening night, they, you know, introduced all the, you know, special guests, and I had like, you know, 30 seconds on stage to just say, hey, come see my talk like on Friday, you know, at 2 p.m. in the theater, whatever. And then at the reception, I was inundated by queer female Indian filmmakers who were like, oh my God, I love The Other Love Story. It changed my life. You don't understand what this means to us. And for context, India only decriminalized being LGBTQ a year before, you know, my event there in 2018, right? And so they move very fast socially. But this one woman, she pulls out her phone and turns on her Tinder. And I'm like, why are you showing me your Tinder? And every image on the grid as she funneled for lesbian were images and stills from the other love story from our original project. And I started crying. I embraced this woman. Like, we became friends. I took her to dinner. I woke up my co-founders, Aaliyah, LaShawn, and Chris, which I don't know what, 15 hours behind India, in Los Angeles, to tell them this story. Here we are impacting a community in a part of the world who is totally massively underserved and is, paying attention and watching streaming services, even like Reverie in the West, which is, we're available in over 130 countries. And that alone was creating change for a community in a part of the world that I had never even known existed had I not traveled there in that moment, right? So to me, that's even better than winning an Oscar, an Emmy, or any type of award, because you're showing the impact that, media can have on folks, not even just in our own backyard here in the United States, but even internationally in a place like India.
Amazing. I mean, you're changing lives. I think that is so critical. Absolutely.
No, and that's the thing. The filmmakers changing lives. We're just creating a platform to bring that to the world. I always say, like, I love this story. I don't want to take credit for Harini's work, but it's, those moments that remind us that we are actually a lot more connected than we perceive ourselves to be. And this idea of intersectionality, it's about bringing all these communities together and realizing we're a culture. Let's speak and walk and talk as a culture, instead of, the things that divide us.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, like, as we were putting this program together, we're like, okay, this is for the LGBTQIA plus panel. And it was like, oh, and then we have the BIPOC panel. And then someone was just like, when are we going to stop being all these letters and just start being humans? And it was just such a beautiful, like, poignant moment. It's just like, we have all these letters because we want to create space for everyone to be their authentic selves and show who they really are. But at the end of the day, we're all humans, and connecting on that level is so important to remind ourselves and to remind everyone out there. So I want to do a little 180 here. And you guys have already started to talk a little bit about some of the advertising and branding. We're in media and advertising, and you all are very savvy in that regards. I would love to hear a little bit about how you're seeing the acceptance and the embrace and the partnership with LGBTQIA media partners and stars, and how have brand appetites changed? Damien, Reverie's been around since 2016. It's almost like a quantum leap since then over the years that since you guys have launched. I just would love to hear everyone's thoughts about what's on our minds. Like, are the brands getting it right? Like, what can we tell them to help them? Because we're going to send this over to them so they can hear you out.
I think when it comes to this shift, right, is that, people with platforms, brands with millions and millions of dollars, advertisers, publishers, I think there's now, I don't want to say pressure, but there's this shift in how do we amplify voices that need amplification. And I think that the brands and the campaigns that are doing it right are the ones that bring the community on the ground floor. And I don't even mean just the queer community. I mean any racial community or whoever you are speaking to or connecting to. And I think brands go terribly wrong when they don't include like the people on the ground floor or the people that are actually being affected. And that's where it is very performative and virtue signally and all those things that brands don't want to be, and they run that risk. But the thing that I want to say, and something that Reverie's done and has exposed me to other queer artists that maybe the mainstream hasn't yet touched in on. We see artists like, I'll just use an example, like Lizzo, who released her song 2 years before it became a #1 hit and broke all these records. And it's like, it takes a while for the mainstream to catch up to what's happening. And a lot of these queer artists and queer storytellers are breaking ground now. and they will get caught up. I mean, it's the thing with RuPaul's Drag Race being nominated for 11 Emmys, and even, I don't know, 5 years before, there just wasn't that culture. There wasn't that like fascination from ally audiences or queer audiences, whatever, everyone in between. And so I think what's been beneficial for me, and just even on my journey, is to see that the breadth of voices, whether it's activist voices or artistic voices, from this community are being heard. You're starting to see them, break through the glass. And I think, and brands are obviously extremely savvy and want to align with some of these voices. But I think it's all positive, because I think right now, and especially, we're still in a Black Lives Matter, in a Stop Asian Hate, in a Queer Lives Matter, Pride all year round like world. And I don't think that we can get soft on beating the drum. And I would actually love to see, especially coming out of Pride Month, like brands actually commit to a year-long plan towards whatever, right now it's BIPOC Mental Health Month, like, and I work with brands that are doing stuff particularly in that space, but I want to see what you guys do like all throughout the year, not just on the month, not just for the holiday. And so that was just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, Christopher. I believe we're at this beautiful moment where a lot of just life events are colliding at the same time, that's helping elevate. And I think that those are kind of those beautiful moments in, just the world's timeline, when everything starts getting to the right space, people start paying attention to that drumbeat, as you said. And as that drumbeat continues, it is our job here, and it is brands' jobs, and it's, like the job of every person on earth to continue that beat, to keep us where we are, so that we can continue to grow as a society. And I just think we're at a space where, everything is aligning, and we have to keep this drumbeat going. And part of that is on our brands, because they do tell us so much about our culture as we move forward. And that money spent is so important to get us to the place that we need to be, just as a society.
And just to kind of echo off of like what Holly and Chris were saying, look, I think one of the biggest things is, in this conversation, and comes up a lot, and luckily we haven't, we like to address it kind of head on, but this rainbow washing that we see during Pride season, that is not a bad thing. I just want to go on record, and I've said this multiple times on panels. It's a good thing. It's showing that there is enthusiasm and interest to grow and to invest, have brands invest in the culture. Just like editorial moments like Black History Month, Hispanic History Month, Women's History Month, brands jump in for editorial opportunities, even just with Chris's point, like, BIPOC Mental Health Awareness Month, like there's reasons why brands will jump in during this time. It's taking an opportunity. And again, I'm just going to go back to McDonald's and House of Pride. That was the first time they underwrote anything that was original for our community. And I was so lucky that they trusted the leadership here at Reverie to actually produce this show, and that we were able to deliver on such a massive level. Now McDonald's is chomping at the bit. What are we going to do in the fall? What are we going to do in the winter? What are we going to do again for House of Pride next year, right? They're all in because they see the opportunity. Never once were we or McDonald's accused of rainbow washing, and I'm very proud of this. And my firm belief in this is because they chose the right network, the right production company, and the right leadership to take them into this world, right? We are co-founded by 2 women of color, Aaliyah J. Daniels, LaShawn McGee. Aaliyah is an ally and my best friend, and is an attorney. LaShawn is an Army veteran, a queer woman who also identifies as non-binary. And Christopher Rodriguez, the 4th co-founder, who is Hispanic. I'm an immigrant from Canada who identifies as non-binary. We reflect so many different, intersectionalities, to your last point, of our community, but it's that authentic leadership that resonates even not just in, the non-allied world, but in the allied world, in our own LGBTQ community. So much so that they put us on the billboard in Times Square, images of the co-founders, because they wanted to show that they were all in with,
And
our network
authenticity. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
authenticity. And I don't think, my guess is, had they done this with anybody else who was, not as authentic leadership or ownership profile as Reverie does, it would not have resonated, and they may have been accused of rainbow washing. So that's where brands can really, move the needle. And then the second thing that I just want to make, and I've been on the record multiple times for this, we are not all not-for-profits. Stop treating us just like NGOs, right? And I say this not that I don't have the utmost respect for companies like NGOs like GLAAD and Trevor and all the work and True Colors and the amazing work that they do. But it's problematic in the sense that if you only donate to not-for-profits, then queer entrepreneurs like all of ourselves will never be able to move the needle, create an economy, and create an even bigger culture and market opportunity out of the LGBTQIA audience and consumer base. So, it's important that brands get involved in for-profits and that they do actually spend their marketing and their advertising dollars to push, minority founders. And I'm not just even Reverie. There's so many amazing for-profit startups that are LGBTQ and BIPOC founded that could use the help of those marketing dollars to transition and move the needle for their businesses, creating a more wealthy economy for LGBTQ people.
And I think 2 points that I just want to underscore: the authenticity of you and your founders, co-founders, is really important. And then that notion of supporting businesses that are led and run by diverse founders is not a charitable act. We are your consumers, and we are the growth market. So making sure we make those business points that this is not charity, this is a good business decision, is always critical. So Ezra, we haven't heard from you.
Hold on, just really quick. One last point. Just I apologize, Ezra. I do want to, and this is another big data point. Forbes reported in 2018 that minority founders, not just LGBTQ, minority founders, which only see about 3% of all the venture capital or angel investment, will gross 30 to 40% higher returns than cisgender, straight, white, men who see about 96 to 97% of all venture capital and angel investment in this country. If you just take the data for brands who are listening and watching this, it's a good investment to invest in minority co-founders or minority founding entrepreneurs, because you'll see your dollar just extend so much more farther than you would on a mainstream or something that is cis and white.
Absolutely, because we have so many more headwinds to get to where we need to be. So please, Ezra, I'd love to hear your perspective on this conversation.
No, you're great, Damien. I'm actually super glad that you brought up that data point, because that's actually one of the things I was going to lean into. And the fact of Sheila mentioning that it truly is like an investment, right? In most cases, when we have these founders that are minority founders, we are working with less, but we always produce, in most cases, more with the less that we've been given, because we're used to not having as much. And we are creative and innovative in our approach to marketing and the media and the dynamics of just creation in general. So I love the fact that she brought up that data point and mentioned that it truly is an investment and that you're going to get more bang for your buck, which is why it makes it such a good investment.
And I want to talk a little bit about creation now that we're kind of coming into that area. And Ezra and Christopher, I really want to hear a little bit more about, as creators, and, you, Christopher, in media and using social media and being a pioneer in that space, and you, Ezra, using the canvas of fashion and culture and style. How has the industry made room for you, or how have you had to, break down doors to make room for yourself? Like, what has that experience been like, being a creator in these spaces and bringing your full self to the table as you do your work?
I will say for me, it's been very sort of kind of a process, because for me, one of the things that I've dealt with is being sexually assaulted when I was about 21 years of age. And so that's, just a little bit, a snippet of my life of the things that I've had to overcome and endure. And that leaves this psychological sort of kind of burden of having to get over. And so I was in this avenue of self-discovery and finding myself and what I recognized or realized is that in telling, my story about who I am, no longer being afraid to actually say, I'm HIV positive, and no longer seeing that as a stigma, but a part of like my superpower and who I am. And just really changing and shifting, the narrative. There still are those challenges because not every single person is going to embrace that, but being resolute and resolved and sure of myself of knowing that at the end of the day, like my message is and will always be love. And as long as I give that, I know that it will return in great value and will increase the value that we see in each other in the world. So.
Thank you for this question, Sheila. And I love that response, Ezra, as well. My mission statement as an artist is to call forth the light and love in all of us, and to really activate love as a superpower. And I say as an artist is that it sounds very earnest, but I don't really see my success in dollars or in streams or in social media followers. I see it in me being able to tell my own version of love and knowing that that has power and the ripple. And so actually one thing that came up, Hollywood, while you were speaking, it made me think that as we are all leaders in our own individual roles, in our own individual spaces, we're in the fighting position to be able to influence the way in which brands spend their money. And because oftentimes we think that the market must lead, and if it's a good business move, then but it can't be a good business move until it's a good business move, until people like us are blaring the horn and steering the conversation in the right way. And when I think of just the healing power, I talk about just art and enterprise being vehicles and vessels for healing. And as much as we saw this explosion of rainbow flags and brands and everyone being excited and exuberant, we still exist in a time where 40% of youth homelessness identify as LGBTQ plus. Youth suicide is among the highest killers for that particular age demographic. And if you're LGBTQ plus, you are 3.5 times more likely to contemplate suicide. And if you belong to a non-accepting family, you are 8.5 times more likely to contemplate suicide. And so for me, when I'm like, oh yeah, it's cool that I can just tell my love story, like as an artist or propagate my message through music, or I was invited to LA Pride in 2019 as the first artist to ever perform on the City of West Hollywood stage. And I had this giant 30-foot screen that said, God loves all of us, because I felt like that was a message to particularly bring to Pride, to show that this is a healing, this is a space for healing, and that we all do need that. And I'm not saying other communities don't, but I think that the power of being able to share my own love story through song or through story or through film is, it can save lives. And I have no doubt about that now, especially working with companies like Reverie.
Amazing. I thank you both for sharing and staying on this notion of creation. Holly, I know that you have been around creative fields, music, marketing, advertising. Tell us about how you take those creative kernels that you might get from someone like Christopher, Ezra, and translate that into something that you can bring to a brand partner that still is authentic and expressive and meaningful work for you.
One of the biggest things that I have always tried to do in my career is express really the basic, and that's something that's come up several times through our conversation today, and it has to be authentic, and there always has to be true authenticity across the board. You can't push anything, and everybody has to be on board, who is the artist particularly, who's going to come through the brand, to make sure that that message is actually sent through in the appropriate ways. And as far as, also making sure that the right messages are being sent across, I've always been dogged to look to technologies, to look to, media companies, to publishers, and even individuals when it comes to talent networks, to looking to who's going to spread this word. And again, coming back to authentically, to make sure that it's getting to the right people to the people who are going to care, to the people who it's going to touch their hearts, and they're going to, you know, I called it the Uber fan, if you will, since, you know, kind of music, so pardon the fan term. But if you find those right people whenever you're working with brands and you're working with your artist, and it just naturally happens, and that's when it hits. And it comes back to what Christopher was saying. You know, it's you've got to be. We are the ones that are making this happen. You can't just say, well, this person has a huge number and this is going to work. You know, you have to say this person has the right, you know, ethics, morals, like creative standpoints. You know, and that's how you make something successful at the end of the day. It can't be forced.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is such an amazing conversation. I could literally talk to you all for hours, and once, you know, we get together over many bottles of wine, we will do that. But as we continue, we're starting to wrap up our panel. I would love to know, like, what is your, I don't want to say your goal or your aspirations. I don't want it to feel that lofty, but sort of like, what is your hope for the LGBTQ plus community and the conversation that you hope to have? Like, you know, what do you see as sort of the next frontier where we can make progress collectively?
I would say that one of the things that I think is so important, it's really, really simple. It's just to be to be seen, to be heard, to be accepted and appreciated for, you know, who each of us, you know, is. And I know that seems like really, really simple, but the more that we show that reflection of that, because we are a reflection of each other, I think the more that we can reach that message of love and just understanding, and that message alone is like better for the world and the society that we live in. So I think that that's what I would like to see for us as a whole.
I think within the mainstream conversation, we still have gatekeepers that filter the way in which the queer community is positioned, and I just find it even in my own circles, in the way that I do business, in the way that I create my content is to celebrate and uplift queer people. And I would love our community to be seen as beautiful and powerful. I think we see how much money is spent in the beauty industry, obviously in mass marketing, in media, in entertainment, in the arts. I just want to be able to look at a magazine and see a queer man of color, just to be like, oh, he's beautiful. Like, that's great. You know what I mean? And not just in this very like specific look, like, you know, let him be wearing, I don't know, something fabulous, or like a bodysuit or whatever it is. And I mean that just very honestly, just I think we all deserve to be seen as beautiful and powerful, and that is a form of empowerment. And I do think that, like, I think we're entering into a paradigm of conscious capitalism in which brands now are being held more towards their accountability and their transparency, and reasoning so is because entrepreneurs like Damien and the rest of us are becoming increasingly savvy to enter the conversation, and we're actually holding the microphone. So I think that it's going to be really exciting to see this paradigm shift in which people are actually more enlightened. They're more in tune with the rhythms of where we need to go as a society. Business cannot just be meant to make money for, you know, a very limited few. We're all meant to celebrate and to enjoy and to thrive. And so that's my hope.
Amazing. Other thoughts?
Yeah, I look forward to the day where, you know, certain just elements of just our day-to-day life stop becoming taboo. You know, it was a big deal when Harry Styles showed up on a dress, you know, in a dress in Vogue, I believe it was, you know, and it's like, why can't that just be normal fashion if somebody wants to express themselves in that direction? So I'm looking forward to that day. And I think we will get there, especially with Gen Z.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and just like final thought on this, look, I agree with all of these points, and Chris, I love conscious capitalism. I think that is, and we need to hashtag that right now.
Right.
If you haven't already, I'll definitely reshare it. But you know, I think that with conscious capitalism, you know, it's it's weighing those two sides. Look, brands are going to enter the market and they're going to see opportunity and they're going to see, and hopefully they align themselves with authenticity. But look, at the end of the day, our market size is 965 billion in disposable income in the US alone. That's what the LGBTQ market spends, 5 trillion globally. And that's not an accurate number because obviously there's not data for every country yet because it's not accepted. We're not accepted in every country yet. And if you were to bottle that economy, it'd be the 12th largest economy in the world. This is not a small market. This is not a small opportunity. If you're not already, and I'm speaking directly to the brands who are watching this video, in alignment, with either one of these individuals on this call or, some type of LGBTQ marketing or advertising in your budget or your line items, you're already behind the game, right? And so it's, now is the time to really dive in in a big way, because this is how we to everyone else's point, we normalize our love, our beauty, our acceptance, because we'll be on the cover of Vogue wearing a dress and looking fabulous, in whatever, in whatever iteration of gender expression that you want to have, and I think that is the future of our community. That is the future of the opportunity. And that's really the future of this market and this segment. And Reverie will be here to join you for the ride. So come find us.
I love
Personal
it.
plug right there.
I love it. I love it. That's right. Loud and proud. I love that.
Yeah.
So we are at time. And again, I wish we had more time to delve into these really important issues. It's been such a pleasure to meet all of you and have this important and fantastic conversation. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone out there watching has also learned a lot. We look forward to being in touch with you and finding ways that we can work together. At Mirror Digital, we reach over 30 million consumers each month, and we are very focused on amplifying diverse voices and making sure that every voice is seen and heard and that people can bring their authentic selves to the table. So there's a lot of ways I see that we can have some alignment with everyone on this call. So thank you again for joining us for Mirror Moments episode 7, and we look forward to speaking with you all soon. Have a great day.
Thank you so
Bye,
much
everyone.
for having us.
Bye.
Thank you.